Thank you. Please be seated. The next item on the agenda is those present and apologies. We have a request for leave of absence from Councillor Swain. The rest of the elected members are present for our ordinary meeting for October, as well as the executive team. So I'll now call for an elected member to move. Thank you, Councillor Moses, seconded by Councillor Fuller, that the leave of absence is accepted. And then I'll put that motion on favour. Against? Declare that motion carried. Moving on now to item number 5, which is confirmation of previous minutes in relation to ordinary meeting held on Wednesday the 16th of September 2020. Please have elected member move the motion. That'd be true and correct. Thank you, Councillor Luke, and seconded by Councillor Fuller. I'll now put that motion on favour. Against? So that motion carried as well. Next item on the agenda is declarations of interest. We have currently 4 declarations, starting with myself in relation to item 11.5, which is a request of the Gunnedah District Chamber of Commerce and Industry to reapportion sponsorship for the Gunnedah Spirit of Christmas Fair. I've listed it as pecuniary, and the reason being a business that I own may participate in the campaign should it be supported. So I'll be leaving the chambers for the debate, discussion and determination. Next we have Councillor Fuller with item 11.4, Invigorate Gunnedah. It's a significant non-pecuniary declaration as her daughter owns one of the businesses that is mentioned, and also Councillor Fuller is a member of Gunnedah Meals on Wheels. Also, item 12.3, Councillor Fuller has a declaration for the Lions Club. It's a significant non-pecuniary as well, as she is a current member of Gunnedah Lions Club. For both of those items, Councillor Fuller will be leaving the chambers for the debate and determination. From our executive team, the Director of Planning and Environmental Services, Mr. Johns, has a declaration in relation to item 12.1, request for fee reduction from the Gunnedah District Cricket Association, less than significant non-pecuniary, and the reason is that he is a member of the Gunnedah District Cricket Association and will be leading the room for the debate and determination. I'll now call for any further declarations in relation to the ordinary meeting of Council. One last call for any declarations. No more declarations. Okay, so we'll move on to our next item, which is item number 7, community representation. We have one speaker who has applied for council to address the meeting, and that is the President of the Gunnedah Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Juliana MacArthur, and she will be representing the Chamber in relation to item 11.5 in the business paper. And now I'd like to ask Ms. MacArthur to come forward. As per the standard rules of engagement with council at a council meeting, have approximately 5 minutes to address council in relation to item 11.5 and 11.5 only. And at the conclusion of your presentation, councillors may ask some questions. So over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to councillors for the opportunity to address council today. I'd like to take the opportunity to note we have our Christmas Fair Coordinator in the public gallery, Tracy Binay. Under the Invigorate Gunnedah, the Community Resilience Business Recovery Package adopted by Council in July, Council was resolved to boost the Chamber of Commerce Christmas Fair by increasing sponsorship to $12,000. The desired outcome was to give our retailers, our local retailers, support, our hospitality and our community opportunities for growth, recognising what has happened this year because of COVID-19. And not to forget the previous couple of years of severe drought. We want vibrancy in our CBD. We want people to shop local. Gathering shopper data is something that Chamber intends to do as well. So the Invigorate Gunnedah objectives are very clear to you all. And as you know, Chamber puts on a very successful Christmas fair, I think the past 5 years, Tracy. And the benefits to our local economy are fairly obvious. We draw in people from all over the Shire and beyond to come and spend their hard-earned money in our Shire. The 2020 Christmas Fair had to find an alternative due to COVID-19 to holding our public event. And this year we've actually extended the campaign and the work undertaken by Chamber and Tracy Finlay from the 1st of October to the 18th of December. We've ramped up participating businesses to over 60. We have weekly prizes pouring in from local businesses. And we also have the excitement of the major prize being a car. There is much excitement in the business community about this. We've had an early promotion of the campaign results so far are really encouraging. We've had 10,000 entries so far. The minimum spend is $20. So already we had $200,000 in our local economy. We have 8 weeks to go. Depending on the decision made by councillors today, we're printing another 30 to 40,000 entry tickets. I've seen a few entries myself, and I can tell you the majority of those, and it would be easily 50 that I've looked at, are nowhere near $20. They're nowhere near $50. They're well over $100, and many of them are over $1,000. So I'm pretty excited about this initiative. And we're aiming for more than 30,000 entries. Today's reapportionment of funding towards Chamber will allow us to extend our very small media campaign to date to a much larger audience because we want to use TV. And even though it may be made outside the Shire through TV stations in Tamworth, because we don't have our own here in Gunnedah, it will go to an estimated 167,000 people, a little bit like the Inverell Shire and others, to encourage people to come to Gunnedah. So we don't want to send them to Tamworth, we want them to come here. And we've won an outstanding Christmas fair this year. And we think our over about 130 members to date deserve one. A TV campaign will tick several boxes under the Invigorate Gunnedah package also. 2MO, 2GGG, is doing an amazing job to date supporting us, and it has kicked in $4,000. And it's actually more than that value because it's giving us a lot of different spots as well. And several of you should have heard some of the radio ads so far. And I know that several councillors here have assisted Chamber in the past through representation, and you're very much aware of what the flow-on effects through our local economy of increase in retail sales are. Chamber really values the supportive relationship we have with Council, and this reapportionment is only going to cement that going forward. So we ask Council to join in some of our larger businesses that have already offered significant sponsorship: Gunnedah Automotive, 2MO, 2GGG, Whitehaven Coal Limited, as well as all the local businesses that are supplying weekly prizes. In providing the $12,000, Council will be a major sponsor. It will be highly visible through all of our traditional and social media. So on behalf of Chamber, I request your support for this proposal, and let's continue to give our businesses a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms MacArthur. Now I'm going to open up to the elected members if there are any questions of the President of our Chamber of Commerce before we progress.
I have one question for you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, MacArthur, for your elaborating on what the plan is. Sounds like a very positive outcome for the business community and Gunnedah community. But I was a little surprised, even I was a bit perturbed, but the first I heard of this proposal was when I saw it on social media that we were already had made a commitment to this program. And I'm just wondering whether you know how that came about, because we are separate organisations, and I think it's very important that we, the council in this case, is aware of what we're being asked and make a decision before we're being advertised to the public that we're involved in something which we're not even aware of. So I'm just wondering whether how that information got on Facebook before we were even received our business paper requesting the amount.
Do you mean the $12,000 or our presentation here today, Councillor?
I'm sorry, but
Do you mean the commitment to the $12,000?
well, it was proposed on social media, it reported to me that the council was supporting it, and we, at that stage, we hadn't even heard of it.
Well, I might only refer you, Councillor, to item 2.2 of the Integrate Gunnery package, which Council decided in July, which says, boost Chamber of Commerce Christmas Fair by increasing sponsorship $12,000, future opportunities for local retailers, hospitality and community connection, access to shopper data. And that is a public document.
I think we're aware that we were supporting the Christmas fair with ahead. That's not the car. There was some suggestion about the car being.
I'm not aware of the specific content of that particular post, but the general spirit, I think, is of arising from that item that council would be supporting the Christmas fair. So I'm not sure if Tracy is able to elaborate any further on that actual post. Perhaps we've done council a bit of a favour in advance of a decision today.
I'm not aware of any social media posts that may or may not be. Councillor Hasley, you've asked the Chamber President, who's not aware of it, so I think we might leave that in abeyance for now. Maybe that can be something that's brought up at a later date, and we'll take that on notice.
I would add, if there is such a post that's an error, then we would correct that and apologise for the inconvenience.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, councillors, before we move forward with our ordinary meeting? Councillor Fuller.
I'd just like to congratulate the Chamber. I'd like to particularly congratulate Tracy and the yards that she puts in every day that I see Tracy out in the community. She's just working so hard, and I think that the Chamber is very lucky to have her. I think you're picking up members out in the community, so congratulations to you all. But I'd like to congratulate Tracy on the work she's done. You just see her everywhere, so congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments, councillors? Thank you, Mr. Carr. Thank you for your contribution. We'll now move forward, councillors. The next item, item 8, is a Merrill Minute. Now, I will apologise for this. It is a late report that you'll see before you. There's a reason that it's a late report, and that is because it was only just yesterday, late yesterday afternoon, that we were notified that we've won an award in New South Wales in the local government category. So you'll see I have a recommendation before you that the information in regards to New South Wales Resilience Australia Award will be received and noted, and that's what the motion I'll be putting shortly. But I'd just like to speak to it if I could. As I said, the reason it's late is because we've only just been notified, but it's great. What we do at council can be very challenging at times, and we've been through a very challenging 4-year term of council. Basically, 2016, when we came in, was the start of the worst drought in living memory. Now, both state and Commonwealth governments have many different programs out there and still do to support our community, but we took a very bold step as a group of elected members to endorse a $1.2 million package to build our own program of stimulus for our community, for us to support. We then asked the state government if they would contribute to that $1.2 million contribution from our community, from council on behalf of our community, and then to the Commonwealth government. Both agreed that it was a very worthwhile program that we're putting together. So that turned our $1.2 million into $3.2 million. And I've got to say, the participation in the community was the success story also behind this. The idea was to stimulate our economy and keep businesses open, keep local people employed, and make sure that money bounced around our community as much as possible to support people and jobs. Now, you'll see the commentary in the report. As you all know, the program is broken into 3 key areas. One was a very popular and a great initiative called the Farmer Army Project, which was an idea born by the executive team, of course supported by everybody. And it was great because it gave people on the land and also people who were employed in businesses that supports primary production an opportunity to get off the land, which we know is an important thing during quite a stressful time, but also come and join council on a casual basis to basically get some income, but support some of the operations and delivery of some of the programs through our parks and gardens and other operational areas of the organisation. So that was a terrific part of the project. Also, we went to the community and asked for what were some good ideas to stimulate our economy with a focus on resilience long term. We had an enormous amount of feedback there, but we worked with 16 groups and are still working through some 20 projects, which is great to see that outcome and some really positive infrastructure upgrades and so forth for organisations like the Gunnery Tennis, Rural Fire Services, Oranga. I was out at Oranga this morning as well, looking at progress there. And then, of course, ourselves as an organisation looking at important infrastructure that would make us more resilient when the next drought comes around. And the main project there was looking at the bores and sandpipe installation across our village network. So, look, we know how important that was. We know it was a bold step for us as an organisation to make that commitment, something that wasn't budgeted for, $1.2 million. It was a bold step. But when state government and Commonwealth government come together to back us, 3 tiers of government, we got an absolutely fantastic result. And I think it's a just reward for the organisation, for our partners in our community to be successfully winning the award in the local government category, 128 local government areas across New South Wales. We don't do it for notoriety, but I think it's a just reward that we have won this particular category. So it gives me great pleasure to put this forward as a environment. And in just summing that up, I'd also like to publicly acknowledge the work of our state member, the Honourable Kevin Anderson, in his advocating for that $1 million from the state government, and also the Honourable Mark Colton, our federal member, the member for Parks, also working with us closely for that $1 million from the Commonwealth government. As I said, we wouldn't have been able to achieve as much if it wasn't 3 tiers of government working together. So in saying that, councillors, I'll put that motion now, and that recommendation is that the information in regards to New South Wales Resilience Australia Award be received and noted, and I'll put that motion as I don't need a second for that. So I'll put that motion. All in favour? Against? I'll call that unanimously supported. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before we move on to item 9, the General Manager report, I do note that in front of us we have a late report to be considered, and I move that report be included as item 9.4 of the General Manager's report.
Thank you, Councillor Hook. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Would anyone like to speak to that before I put that motion? I understand in the code of meeting practice, if it can be brought to the ordinary meeting as a late report based on it being an urgent matter, and noting that it is related to a conference that's coming up only in a very short time, then I would deem that to be urgent. So yeah, unless there's any objections from the floor, I'll put the motion.
This is the late report for the General Manager.
We're not determining the late report, Councillor Hasler. What we're determining is to accept it in as a report, which will come as the last item in the General Manager's reports. So I'll put that motion. All in favour of accepting the late report? Against? Declare that motion carried. It will become item 9.4, the last item on the General Manager's reports. In saying that, now we are at the General Manager's reports. Item 9, starting with 9.1, donation of prize to Gunnery High School. I'll hand over to the General Manager to detail the recommendation for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, good evening, councillors, member of the gallery and those at home. I'll speak to items 9.1 and 9.3 conjointly. They all concern a endorsement of the General Manager's actions in donation of prizes to the Gatndale High School for annual presentations, St Mary's College for annual presentations, and the Clueless Public School for their annual Christmas fundraising event. Pleased to take any questions, councillors, and if councillors so chooses, they could be moved as an omnibus motion.
I would call for a elected member to move the motion item 9.1 or something different. Councillor Luke, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that we consider all those three, 9.1, 9.2 and 9.3 conjointly. What's the word? Let's do it together.
Do I have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Moses, thank you. That'll be the case. Firstly, I'd like to ask Councillor Luke, would you like to speak to that motion?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's a good cause and I'm pleased that the General Manager undertook those actions.
I now call for elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. There's no one speaking against the motion, then I think I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declare the motion carried. So we'll go straight to item 9.4, which is the late report, and I'll hand to Mr. Groff to detail the recommendation that you'll see before you in two parts. Well, firstly, before I do, I might call for a nomination for the alternate voting delegates, please.
I nominate Councillor Luke.
Councillor Luke, do you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you, Mr Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fuller. I'll call for any further nominations. There are no further nominations. Thank you. Councillor Luke will be included in the motion as you see on the screen. I'll hand to Mr. Groff the detail of the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So for those playing at home and all those not having the luxury of 9.4 sitting in front of them, essentially this motion is about Councillor Hook has been unable to attend the annual conference in November for local government New South Wales. So we undertook a quick email poll of our councillors to see who would be willing to attend, and Councillor Campbell is the only person that's been brave enough to raise his hand to attend in the absence of Councillor Hook. So in that case, we're just seeking confirmation that Councillor Campbell be endorsed to attend, and further as has just been nominated, that Councillor Luke actually take the second voting role in addition to the Mayor. Pleased to take any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Groff. I now call for elected member to move the motion. Thank you, Councillor Fuller, and seconded by Councillor Hook. Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak to the motion before I put the motion?
No thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Do I have an elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a further question? Then I'd like to put the motion on favour.
No.
Against? Declare that motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Groff, for your contribution. We'll now move on to item number 10, which is Director of Corporate Community Services reports. And I'd like to hand over to Mr. Foreman after his extended period of leave. Great to have him back at council. And we'll start with item 10.1, which is policy, gifts and benefits update. I'll ask Mr. Foreman to detail that recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it is great to be back in the chamber with you all after a long holiday. The first item deals with amendments to the gifts and benefit policy, and the reason for the amendment is to bring the policy into line with the recent changes to the code of conduct that were adopted not too long ago at a council meeting. The recommendation is that the council adopt the amended policy.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. I'll now call for elected member to move that motion. Thank you, Councillor Campbell, and seconded by Councillor Luke. Councillor Campbell, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Now call the elected member who'd like to ask a question or speak against the motion. If there's no one against the motion, I'm going to put the motion on in favour. Against? Declare the motion carried. Moving on, item 10.2. Form of written returns for interest submitted under clause 4.21. I'll hand back to Mr. Foreman to detail that recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report details that all of the forms of written interest that are required to be collected annually from councillors and designated persons have been received. They are tabled in the folder before me at the meeting, and the recommendation is that council note that they've been received in accordance with the code.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. I'll now call it as a member. Thank you, Councillor Hook, seconded by Councillor Fuller. Councillor Hook, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I have an elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question. There be no debate against, then I'll put the motion on favour. Against? Declare that motion carried also. Moving on, item 10.3, outstanding resolution register. We have a recommendation before us that the information be received and noted, and I'll hand to Mr. Foreman in case you'd like to add anything to that.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that the information be received and noted.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. I'll now call for elected member to move that be accepted. Thank you, Councillor Hook, and seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Hook is the mover. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll now call for elected member who'd like to ask a question or speak against the motion. No debate against the motion. I'll put the motion on in favour. Against? Declare the motion carried. Moving right along. We're progressing really well today. Next is item 11, which is the Director of Planning and Environmental Services reports. Starting at item 11.1, Reconciliation Action Plan. It's a pleasure to hand over to Mr. Johns to detail the recommendation report.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you, councillors, following on from our workshop in September this year. This report seeks council support to embark on an innovate reconciliation action plan and to endorse the principal creation of a reconciliation action plan working group. If council agrees to the creation of the working group, staff will engage with the Aboriginal community, seeking their views on which community groups ought to be represented, and then a further report will come back to council for endorsement of the makeup of that group. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Councillors, as you see on screen before you, and in your business papers, there's a motion in two parts. I'll now call for, thank you, Councillor Fuller would move that motion. Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Fuller, as the mover of the motion, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Only to say congratulations to the staff and everyone for the work that's gone into it. And I think it's a great move for Gunnedah Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Do I have an elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Moses is the second to the motion. Would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just before I put this motion, I'd like to also echo the comments of Councillor Fuller. I think this is a great step forward for this organisation, one that has been discussed over many years, but to come to this position where we're about to vote on starting the process to extend on the work that we already do in this space, I think is quite progressive. I'm very much in favour of this, and there can only be good outcomes for our community, in my point of view. So, in saying that, I'd now like to put that motion. All in favour? Against? We'll call that unanimously supported. Thank you. Moving on, item 11.2, development application number 2020/062, and I'll hand to Mr. Johns to detail that recommendation.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and again through you, this report, councillors, seeks approval of a development application for the demolition of an existing dwelling and replacement of that dwelling at Kelvin. The reason it's being put before you is as there is a contravention of a development control standard, and that development control standard relates to the setback of a dwelling from an unsealed road. Now, the situation with this one, councillors, is that it was destroyed in a natural disaster. I guess a type of a mini cyclone, I guess, destroyed the home, and the proponents simply proposing to replace that dwelling and put it back on the same spot. Given the fact that all the utilities, the power, the septic tank, and those types of things are at that location, the variation of the standard is supported in this instance.
Thank you, Mr. Johns.
Motion.
Thank you, Councillor Luke, seconded by Councillor Hook. Councillor Luke, just to speak to the motion.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it all is explained quite well in the Director's report.
I'd elected member who'd like to ask a question or speak against the motion. Councillor Luke.
I'll make my point by asking a question. Is it fair to say it won't be an unsealed road forever?
Councillor Hook, as a second of the motion, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think only to say that it's nice to see that we have the ability to be able to make decisions which are practical and actually do benefit the people who have been been impacted by unfortunate circumstances.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments, councillors, before I put this motion? And councillors, as a show of hands, if I could ask, please all in favour? And I'll call that unanimously supported. So therefore, the motion is carried. Moving on, item 11.3, which is application to modify development consent number 2019/014.002, and I'll hand back to Mr. Johns to detail that recommendation.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to the modification to a DA pertaining to the Gunnedah soccer fields out on Finch Street here in town. There are minor internal floor plan type changes proposed, as well as some external elevation changes proposed. And the reason that it's being put to you for determination is that the original application was determined by you.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Now, point for elected member. Thank you. Councillor Fuller has moved the motion, or the recommendation to become a motion. Councillor Moses has seconded that motion. Councillor Fuller, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I have an elected member who'd like to speak against the motion and ask a question. There's no debate, and I'll put the motion. All in favour? By show of hands, call that unanimously supported and therefore carried. Thank you. Moving on, item 11.4, which is Invigorate Gunnedah COVID-19 Business Recovery Package Business Partner Program. And I'll note that Councillor Fuller has a declaration of interest and has left the chambers for the debate and consideration of the recommendation we have before us. So now I'll hand over to Mr. Johns to detail that two-part recommendation you see before.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, councillors, this report seeks the endorsement of the Business Partner Program Advisory Group relating to the COVID-19 Business Recovery Package 2021 Business Partner Program, specifically the signage and facade round, which has been considered by that advisory group. The advisory group has made a recommendation to this council that they allocate 45 grants totaling $40,506. And the report also seeks permission from council to draw $506 from the Business Partner Program restricted asset, which currently sits almost at $79,000. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. I'll now call for elected member to move the recommendation to become a motion. Thank you, Councillor Luke.
Thank you.
And seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Luke, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I chaired this particular working group and saw a lot of the information that was provided by the staff in economic development and the applications by those businesses. I'm impressed with the fact that it actually has got our businesses enthused about making their premises look more modern, not tired is probably a fair summary. I think the impact of this particular round of funding is not just that $40,000 has been spent on those business facades and shop fronts. Those businesses, that's the contribution we gave them, probably on average about $1,000 each. But the extra money that those businesses themselves are putting in, so it's probably a spend of getting close to, somebody did the figures for me, did you look up the figures? $112,000, thank you for the mutterings, $112,000 that the local businesses are going to actually spend on making their businesses look pretty. And the other really good thing about this particular program is that we did strongly favour those applicants that did use local contractors or local other businesses to do that work. So there's a lot of money that's going to go around in a lot of circles within our community and make us look pretty all at the same time. So it was a great round of funding, and I thank the other members of the Business Partner Program and my fellow councillors that are also on that working group for putting their attention to it, and commend the recommendation to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Luke. Do I have an elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question? Councillor Moses, would you like to speak as a second on the motion? I also note that you're on the committee.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Lucas spoken to all of us.
That being the case, then I'd like to put the motion. All in favour? I'll call that unanimously supported. If you could please invite Councillor Fuller to return to the chambers. Ms. Markey, if you could please have the record show Councillor Fuller has returned to the council meeting in the chambers. Councillors, the next item is item 11.5. I have a declaration of interest and I'll be leaving the chambers now for the debate and determination. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hook, will now be presiding over the council.
Record show that Councillor Chapter has left the chambers. We now move on to item 11.5, request from the Gunnedah District Chamber of Commerce and Industry to reinforce the sponsorship of the Gunnedah Spirit of Christmas Fair, the Christmas Shop local campaign. I hand over to Mr. Johns for that lovely recommendation.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councillors, as Mrs. McArthur articulated quite well earlier, sadly the 2020 Spirit of Christmas Fair has had to be cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this report outlines a proposal from the Chamber that would see Council reapportion the funds allocated towards that Christmas fair towards the Shop Local campaign. Now the report outlines the various benefits not only to the community but also to our organisation, the council. The other point that I wanted to make in the report was that there was $7,000 allocated in the Invigorate Gunnedah package, which was earmarked for exactly a campaign like the one that the Chamber is proposing to now run in lieu of the Christmas fair. So as such, should council support this project, I would suggest that $7,000 be returned to the general fund. I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Now call on Councillor Fuller. There's moved motion, seconded by Councillor Oakley. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Johns. I'm happy to move that motion and to have that $7,000 back in. So thank you very, very much. And thank you to the Chamber. And as I said earlier, thank you to Mrs. Dimmock for the work she's doing every day in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Do I have anybody who wishes to vote against the motion or ask a question? Councillor.
If I may make a comment, it's often said that here, not a question, Mr. Chairman, but just a few comments. May I just quickly? I think it's interesting that I've had a long association, though not currently, with the Chamber of Commerce. I can remember having a meeting in my office back in, I think it was 1996, when one strong member of the Chamber of Commerce at the time, which was Dr. Jerry Bartlett, one of our dentists in town, and there's a few people here shaking their heads. Jerry was a very enthusiastic promoter of local things. And back then I can remember him saying, we've got to have a car, we've got to have a car. If we want to actually get people to shop locally, we've got to have a car. Anyway, the rest of us ran scared then, and Jerry's Bartlett's idea of having a car never got off the road. The rest of us were too scared to manage it and make cars were as cheap as packages that they sometimes can be. But a big ticket item, I actually take my hat off to the current executive committee of the Chamber of Commerce, that this is now 24 years after we spoke down Jerry Bartlett back in my office in Chandler Street back then, and here we are, we've got a car. So I think well done to the Chamber of Commerce, because those big ticket items, yeah, really do work, and I must make sure that Jerry knows that it's finally come about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, if you wish to add a comment.
Yeah, of course I do. You've read me very well, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The director responsible, Mr. Johns, made a comment that unfortunately the Spirit of Christmas Fair has been cancelled due to COVID. I'd like to repurpose that comment or see it slightly different. And no one in this room chose COVID, and while some of us are humorously running up a list of positives and negatives for the purpose of resilience through comedy, we should call out the fact that as a community, earlier we spoke about winning an award for resilience. A lot of the things that we've been trying to achieve in this chamber and within this organisation, within our community, is being resilient for whatever the world throws up at us or whatever life throws up at us. How good is it to see that one of our cornerstone community organisations has, I'm going to use a buzzword here, managed to flex and pivot so amazingly to turn what could be, a diabolically devastating event to the business community and our shire into something that is probably going to end up being as positive as what it could have been had COVID-19 not been around. In fact, it may even end up with more publicity and more cash being generated and spent in our town. So I know this is going to get through with flying colours, and I know we're furiously in support, but this is the type of thing that we as an organisation, the Chamber, have been working hard on. Congratulate the Chamber, congratulate the staff, and it's great to see some money going back to the funds.
Thank you, Councillor King. I think it is time to put the motion, so to put the motion, those in favour? It is unanimous. Can someone call on the mayor?
Thank you, Councillor Hook, for chairing during that item. We'll now move on to item 11.6, which is the Skills and Training Working Group, community nominations, and I'll...
Mr Mayor, before you hand over to the Director, can I declare a mistake on my behalf? I haven't submitted the declaration of interest in relation to this matter. I would like to declare a continuing declaration of interest as my employer has mentioned in that, and I'll leave the chamber. And I will fill out paperwork and mark it in a following term.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. That is a decision that you're entitled to make, and it will be noted. I'll call for any further declarations in relation to Councillor O'Keefe's position. Oh, okay, let's move forward then. Item 11.6, and I'll hand back to Mr. Johnson to detail a recommendation in two parts for you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through you, councillors, as you would have read from this report, it seeks endorsement of the Skills and Training Working Group purpose. So the purpose of that working group, plus also the appointment of three business representatives that are outlined in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. I'll now call for elected member. We have Councillor Fuller has moved the motion, and Councillor Hook has seconded the motion. Councillor Fuller has moved the motion. Mr. Speaker.
I need to say, Mr Mayor, congratulations to the new people coming on. I think this is another great initiative done at our Shire Council in getting its trades and skills up. So congratulations to yourself, the staff and everybody. Happy to be on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Do I have an elected member who'd like to speak against the motion? Ask a question. Councillor Hook is a second in the motion. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Only briefly. It's really good to see that we've got some very, very solid businesses here willing to support skills and training in this community. It's been quite a long time coming in an unofficial capacity of getting this off the ground, and I highly recommend to my fellow councillors that we endorse these three positions of Whitehaven Coal Limited, Aztec, Earth Moving Repairs and Manny Engineering. They will bring a lot of knowledge and skills to the table, and hopefully we'll be able to boost us into a new direction to be able to upskill our local people and trades in this area. So I recommend it to councillors.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, I'll now open the motion on favour. Against? I'll declare that unanimously supported as well. Thank you, Mr. Johns, for your contribution to our ordinary meeting of council. We can now call on Councillor Ms. Markey. Would you have the record show, please, that Councillor has returned to the chambers. We'll now move on, councillors. Item number 12, our ordinary meeting is the Director of Infrastructure Services reports. I'll call on Mr. Bartlett to detail recommendations to council, starting with item 12.1. Request for fee reduction going to the District Cricket Association. Noting we have a declaration of interest from Mr. Johns, Director of Planning and Environmental Services, and please have the record show that Mr. Johns has left the chambers for the discussion, debate, and determination. Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The purpose of this report is to bring to Council's attention Gunnedah District Cricket Association's request for a reduction of the ground wire to the local US South to match that of the Canberra Park for the upcoming season. Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I'll now call for elected member to move the recommendation to become a motion.
I'm happy to move it, but I have a question of the director.
So I'll call for a second of the motion and we can open up for questions in the vote. Thank you, Councillor Moses. Councillor Haslett. You may speak.
A question to Mr. Bartlett. Why are we charging the rates at the moment? And was there some justification originally, or and if so, why would we want to change that now? Apart from having received a request to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Haslett, for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The fees and charges for Longmuir Fields were reviewed, and the structure of those fees were reviewed before the 2019-20 fees were adopted by council. Part of that was around the structuring of those fees. So there used to be set up as Longmuir. Getting the exact description of the fees used to have. However, they're booked now, so the fees are structured now how the fields are booked, whereas before they weren't. That has resulted in inadvertently in a change in those fees for Longmuir, and that's what's resulted in discrepancy between the charges essentially for Longmuir Fields and for McAndrew Park. We intend to review that discrepancy and adjust that formally in the fees and charges when they're reviewed next financial year.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Now call for elected member who'd like to ask a further question or speak against the motion. There's no further debate. I'll put the motion on favour. Against? That's carried. Moving on, item 12.2, 25-metre pool blanket and assistance. And I'll call on Mr. Bartlett to detail the recommendation to the
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The purpose of this report is to seek funding to purchase a motorised blanket buddy for the pool cover at a 25-metre heated pool to alleviate WHS issues.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Before I call for movement of the motion, Ms. Markey, could you please have the record show Mr. Johns has re-entered the chambers? Thank you. Councillors, I now call for an elected member to move the recommendation to become a motion. Thank you, Councillor Campbell, and seconded by Councillor Luke. Councillor Campbell, who wishes to speak to the motion as to move the motion.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
An elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a question? There's no debate. I'll put the motion. All in favour? No. Call that unanimously supported. Moving right along. The next item is 12.3. We have a declaration of interest from Councillor Fuller. And if I could please have the record show Ms. Markey that Councillor Fuller has left the chambers for the debate. Councillors, the item is in relation to the Lions Park amenities, and I'll hand back to Mr. Bartlett to detail the recommendation for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's concurrence on the General Manager's decision under delegation to allocate funding to allow council staff to undertake cleaning to the Lions Park amenities for 1 month.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. I'll call on elected member to move that recommendation. Councillor Haslett. Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Hazard, would you like to speak to the motion?
There's a detailed report written, and I think for any of us that drive past that location on a regular basis, we recognise the large number of people that utilise that park and the need for those facilities is obvious as a result. The present predicament, I guess, is the problem. We have service clubs and volunteer groups looking after various locations long term. People get old or ill, etc., and having that longevity is the problem. And it's going to be interesting to see what the health department is prepared as the owner of the land, which part is apparently going to be prepared to step up and maintain it. Whether it's the last we hear of this matter, I don't know, but certainly for the interim for a month while those negotiations are taking place, it's most appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Hazard. Do I have an elected member who'd like to speak against the motion or ask a further question? There's no debate. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? The motion carried. Will you please invite Councillor Fuller to join us in the chamber? Ms. Larkin, could you please have the record show that Councillor Fuller has entered the chambers? We'll move right along. Next item, well, thank you, sorry, Mr. Bartlett, for your contribution. Next item is item 13, which is the Chief Financial Officer's reports. 13.1, which is around investments, and I'd now like to invite Mr. Conlon to detail the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the council. Councillors, I will simply commend this month's investment report and welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon. Elected member, please move the motion. Will the recommendation become a motion? Thank you, Councillor Luke. And seconded by Councillor Moses. Councillor Luke, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Elected member would like to speak against the motion. There's no debate. Put the motion in favour.
No.
Against? The motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Conlon, for your contribution to our ordinary meeting. Item 14, which is reports to committees. We have item 14.1, the Planning and Environment and Development Committee meeting, which was held on the 7th of October. Councillors, you have that in your report, so I'm quite simply just asking for endorsement of the report. The recommendation the council notes that all items of the Planning, Environment and Development Committee meeting that was held on the 7th of October 2020 was dealt with by the committee within its delegated powers. So I call for a member. Thank you, Councillor Fuller has moved that recommendation. Now becomes the motion. It's seconded. Call for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Luke. Councillor Fuller has moved the motion. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Do I have an elected member who'd like to ask a question or speak against the motion? There's no debate. I'll put the motion on favour. Against? Well, that motion carried. Moving right along. Next item on the agenda is item 15, notice of motion or question on notice. We have received one notice of motion, which is item 15.1, Gunnedah Memorial Pool opening hours. And the motion reads in 5 parts. In recognition of the community feedback on changes to the pool operating hours, that council, 1, extend the opening times of the Memorial Pool to 8 p.m. from 2nd November 2020 until the 30th of June 21. 2, notes a budgetary impacts through increasing expenses will occur and that a potential impact on our policy of 30% cost recovery in relation to the Memorial Pool. 3, require a report to the November 2020 ordinary meeting to inform the council of resulting required budget changes. 4, require that data be collected between November 2020 and June 2021 regarding patronage of the pool, including season ticket and other ticket holders, and that this data includes numbers of patrons entering or remaining at the pool past 7 p.m. And 5, require a report be presented to council at the June 2021 ordinary meeting based on the data and the effective cost recovery rates of the pool operation, including curves, together with officers' recommendation or council's deliberation of changes for the 2020-21 season. Now, this notice of motion was received and it was requested by Councillor Luke, seconded by Councillor Fuller, and Councillor Hasler. Councillor Luke, you moved this notice of motion. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might just change its point number 5. I think it should read end of point number 5, 2021-22 season. So it's looking at our deliberation of charges for the 21-22 season.
So Councillor Luke, you have moved this motion. It's been seconded by Councillor Fuller and Hazard, so I will ask them if they accept the changes to the notice of motions before us.
No.
Both do, thank you. So, Councillor Luke has moved the motion. Do you wish to speak?
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've pondered since since our August meeting, the resolution that we actually moved at that time, and why I'm now wishing to change what our deliberation was in August. And I think our August resolution, there were 3 things that impacted, that came that were highlighted in my mind. The first was the excitement about opening the pool early and to actually extend the season by opening from the October long weekend. That's a lovely pool, our lovely new pool that's had a few teething issues. That was, yay, yes, let's actually go ahead and open the pool early. Love that idea. The second thing that was very important to me about that is to maintain our 30% cost recovery from these sorts of community facilities that we do run. And those 2 things I think were probably most uppermost in my mind. And because of that, and I think it was probably uppermost in everybody's minds, that I was quite happy with that resolution that we actually did make at the August meeting. And it seemed insignificant at that time about it was it was still winter. Who wants to be at the pool anyway? It's cold and dark at 5 o'clock. Don't really care about it. And then since that time, I have actually sort of come personally to think about the impacts of closing the pool at 7 o'clock, and have had a number of members of the community who have discussed with me their concerns about the early, the 7 p.m. closing instead of 8 p.m. Now, I think because we've had a couple of years of disruptive pool operations, we've now got a fantastic Wizzy pool that's looking great, functioning great, and we've now got a facility that we would love to have maximised use by the community, including not just those people who extending to the full hours till 8 p.m. And the importance of the time between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. I think there's a couple of people, groups in the community that's important to. One is those people that actually have full working days and use the pool facilities as part of their daily exercise regime. There's lots of people doing laps at the end of the day. The second thing is the families in Gunnedah that use the pool till close towards its closing time, till close towards the closing time of 8 p.m. should the pool be open till 8 p.m. That might get there after school, after work, family groups, they all go to the pool, it's hot weather, maybe or maybe not, they've got air conditioning at home, and the pool is a really lovely way for those families to have family time and to relax right through till, I think many of them probably go between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. should the pool be open till 8 p.m. If we close the pool at 7 p.m. as its current hours are now, we are then asking those families to leave in what is one of the hottest parts of the day, go home to your hot house, don't bother having tea here, limit your activities at our pool, and I think that would be something that would be a big loss to our community and for the many families that do actually use that time. Now, I do recognise that there may well be an impact on our budget and our 30% cost recovery. I think it's probably hard for the staff to actually work out what that cost will be. I would much rather spend 6 or 7 months collecting data on what usage there is of the pool, so that we can then have another determination after this month of another month of spring, 3 months of summer, and 3 months of autumn. So we have a bit of a spread of times so that we can then have a much better decision making with the right amount of information when we set the times for or reconsider this in June 21. Sorry, that's a bit long and complicated. A lot of issues going on there, but I think it's worthwhile having a period of time to reverse, in effect, our August decision.
Thank you, Councillor Luke. I now call for elected member who might like to speak against the motion.
I'd like to move that the motion be put, please, Mr. Mayor.
We have a procedural request, so I need to put that motion, that the motion be put.
Mr. Chairman, I'll speak against the motion. As a councillor who did not have the opportunity to speak in August, and as the seconder of this motion, I believe that the rules are such that having a motion that early in the meeting is inappropriate. And it would appear to be trying to truncate a discussion on a very important matter that this council needs to discuss. And as such, I believe it would be inappropriate if we would accept that.
Thank you, Councillor Hasler. We have a procedural motion put forward by one of your fellow councillors, so I'll now need to put that motion, that the motion be put. All in favour? By show of hands. We have 4 in favour. As we have 8 councillors, I have the casting vote. Therefore, I accept that the motion be put is accepted. So now I'm going to put the motion. All in favour of the motion before you, by show of hands. All in favour of the motion before you. Councillor Luke, do you support your motion?
I do, yeah.
So we have 4 councillors for, those against. We have 4 councillors against. Being the fact that we have 4 for, 4 against, I have the casting vote. Therefore, I declare the motion defeated. Thank you. The councillors, now we'll move on. We have the next items are those that are closed. So I'll now call for an elected member to please move a motion that we move into closed committee of council as we're determining items of a confidential matter. Thank you, Councillor Ford, and seconded by Councillor Moses. All in favour? Against?